was the clash of a detective show, but with a sort of a twist in terms of magic, in terms of big reveals, where a magician who sort of comes under scrutiny for a sort of scandal that goes array, a sort of mistrick, gets involved with the FBI and uses his deception sort of skills for good. Thus hence the name Deception. I'm delighted to be joined by the lead actor of the show, who plays the role of Cameron Black in Deception, the one and only Jack Cutmore Scott. You might have seen the first episode aired here in Ireland last week on Channel Alibi in July the 23rd. And Jack, I suppose Deception for you, I wanted a leading sort of role for you. It probably feels like your baby is sort of such in terms of it airing all over the world. How thrilled or delighted are you with the sort of reaction so far in terms of the feedback you've been receiving?
Oh, very thrilled. Yeah, it's been lovely. People's response to the show, they really it's a bit of fun. It's kind of a slightly, as you said, different twist on a very familiar trope, very familiar style of TV show. We're having a bit more fun, a bit more mischief, and I'm really glad that it's finally airing, over in Ireland and the UK, because obviously I'm from London, so it's nice to see it finally on the TV at home.
Yeah, and I suppose, Jack, in terms of a cast, I mean, you have Alifa Dara there, you have Lila Robbins, you have Vinnie Jones. We all know Vinny very promptly. Amari Nolasco, if you probably recognize him from Prison Break, is sort of
Yep.
such as well. So a really sort of an all-star sort of cast in it. And one of the main trends I see in terms of season one is this sort of mysterious woman that sort of keeps ebbing and flowing out of Cameron's sort of life, and we don't see the premises of whether she's good or evil. So there's all, while we see Cameron's main intrigue is getting involved with the FBI, there's also certain backstories developing around his whole personal life and magician life as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, hopefully I'm not spoiling anything if I reveal that, in the pilot we learned that Cameron is actually a twin. So he's got his brother Jonathan, and they've grown up their entire lives doing magic together, sort of pretending essentially to be one person, and that illusion gets shattered in our pilot episode. And over the course of the season, you'll see that they have to grapple with this mystery woman, and who's behind their joint career being sort of flushed down the toilet, as it were. And that's a really fun arc that we kind of work through as their working case of the week, with the FBI. We've also got all of that fun magic backstory, their family story going on at the same time. So that's a lot of fun too.
And Jack, one thing that struck me in terms of doing my research was that Penn and Teller were involved early on in terms of deception, in terms of the magic sort of tricks, and there was just one or two famous sort of magicians brought in terms of how to sort of perfect the magic tricks and how to make them come off real in camera, and in terms of sort of putting their own twist with the writers and producers in terms of developing the whole magic side of the show, which is very important as well, how it appears on screen.
Yes, absolutely. So we had these two fantastic magicians, David Kwong and Francis Minotti, who David sort of helped develop a lot of the ideas with the writers, make sure that everything was actually feasible from a sort of a magician's perspective. And then Francis was on set with me every day, like helping me learn these tricks, teaching me how it all worked, making sure it looked right. So I spent about 6 months before we started shooting, and I call it kind of magic boot camp with those two guys, just actually getting familiar with the sleight of hand, with the sort of conceptual elements to magic. And I got to tell you, I developed a real respect for those guys. That they're very, very intelligent, obviously, but also it's a lot of hard work, a lot of hard graft, a lot of practice. And I got a glimpse of what that would be like. And I know that I couldn't do it, but I can do it well enough. You give me 10 takes, and I'll get you one that works for the camera. But couldn't do it on the spot every night for sure.
And Jack, how important was it for you working with magicians that you bring the sort of integrity across in your portrayal of a magician on the sort of TV screen? Obviously, they're working with you day in, day out, trying to teach you what they know and trying to produce that on screen. So do you feel an onus of responsibility in terms of how it comes across on the screen as well?
Absolutely, and that was a huge thing that we wanted to make sure that sort of the magician community didn't think that we were going to be revealing important secrets, or showing, peeking behind the curtain too much about how a lot of these illusions are pulled off. So everything that we used was all either kind of what they refer to as like in the public domain, every tricks that have been around for hundreds of years that we're all fairly familiar with, or were invented by David and Francis themselves, so as to not feel like we were kind of ripping off any living working magicians right now who rely on those illusions. And I wanted to make sure that the magicians of the magic community would be excited about the show. I did we did a screening at the Magic Castle in LA when the pilot aired over here, just to sort of show it to them, show them what we were doing. I did a couple of tricks up on stage, managed to not completely embarrass myself, and I counted that as a huge win. And I wanted to make sure that everybody was excited about it and didn't think that we were kind of ripping anybody off or anything like that.
Yeah, and I suppose, Jack, in terms of the whole concept now of FBI and sort of cop TV shows, we've seen so many twists on it. There's a prominent show they're going very well at the moment that states City on the Hill. Then you've another twist in terms of comedy, in terms of Brooklyn Nine-Nine as well.
Yeah.
So you sort of get this sort of feeling with magic and sort of illusion, working with sort of serious sort of cases, that there's the implementation that probably there's certain areas that you can go at, but maybe things like maybe kidnapping or abuse or rape or sort of things like that, that in terms of wouldn't sort of be a good sort of miss. So is it very much the whole conception of maybe thefts and sort of robberies and sort of stuff, or are you looking at real serious matters as well?
I mean, I think that our show in particular, is a little bit more escapist than grappling with anything too heavy,
Yeah.
too hard hitting. So yeah, a lot of it was sort of the idea of these criminals using these magical techniques, the same techniques that they used on stage in Vegas, for example, and kind of flipping it on its head and using them as ways to catch those criminals, and kind of the idea of an evolution of this hyper sophisticated criminal sort of who needs an equally sophisticated police force or FBI force to catch them. So that was kind of, we were going for more of those bigger set piece, lots of fun explosions and as you say, like tech stuff, adventure, more of an adventure feel than anything too dark and gritty.
And what was the shooting like on set of Deception? I know it was filmed in New York, but for the first season, did it probably take you maybe from the time you came in that Monday morning, say, to do the table read? Were you talking about, say, maybe a 7-day sort of shoot in terms of final wrap and in terms of block shooting and stuff like that? And in terms of the season, were you talking maybe an 8-month season?
Yeah, not quite that much. I mean, we did, probably an episode in I think it was 8 or 9 days, give or take. So in 5 to 6 days a week. So towards the end, it was, working Saturdays as well to get it all wrapped up. And I think we were shooting for, about 6 months, just under. But in terms of my workload, it was definitely the hardest thing I've done so far. Just in terms of shift and man hours. There's obviously the shooting element, but there's also learning the magic and playing twins as a level of complication to the shoot, which I hadn't experienced before. Just kind of, shooting the same scene in multiple ways, kind of cleverly to disguise the fact that I was playing these two roles at the same time.
And Jack, in terms of Deception, in terms of your main character, Cameron Black, I suppose normally we know with sort of magicians, they have a certain sort of a trend to them, a certain personality, a character as such. Were you sort of looking at maybe other magicians to try and develop your own tone, or are you looking that maybe Cameron has to be this charismatic figure that has to be able to pull an audience, has to be able to captivate people? So were you looking at the sort of the Darren Brown side of things in terms of that sort of thing, or were you looking more along the David Blaine sort of type character, or do you feel that you had to be a showman as well there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cameron's story really is that he's been in the spotlight since he was a kid. His dad was a magician, and he'd been his sort of assistant as a child, just to give some backstory. So he's really been in the spotlight. his entire life. He has that kind of natural confidence and flair and showmanship that comes with that. And it was, what was most fun was sort of playing the two sides, the Jonathan, it's like more shy, retiring, kind of darker brother. Cameron was the more, front man kind of quality to him. So yeah, there definitely, I've been a huge fan of Magic my entire life. So pulling on Copperfield, Blaine, sort of those very showman kind of, Copperfield in particular. But that confidence that really great magicians embody was really what I was going for. Just because, having talked to the magicians a lot, kind of a big part of magic is, even if you screw it up, you're the only one that knows that you screwed it up until a certain point. So if you play it off as if you know what you're doing, then people will believe that you know what you're doing. And that was, for me, someone who definitely didn't know what they were doing on the magic side of things. That was really what I worked very hard to try and focus on, just to give the impression that, even if the cards were not doing what the cards are supposed to do, I had it under control, which took a lot of practice, but it was fun.
And I suppose, Cameron, you had 13 episodes. We have 13 episodes that are featuring in season 1. Have we sort of is every episode a standalone episode, or have we sort of plots running through sort of various episodes where you have to watch maybe 1 or 2 to find a sort of conclusion? And does everything sort of reach penultimate come to sort of 13 episode, or are you still maybe left there on a cliff wondering sort of what's next?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but definitely the structure of most of the season is definitely sort of a case of the week. So Cameron would help the FBI solve whatever big case they've got that week. But there is obviously the mystery woman sort of subplot working its way through, and there are a couple of episodes in the middle of the season that acts as really as one big episode that you see the two different perspectives of what's going on, and they're very much kind of two sides of the same coin, which is a lot of fun. And from that point on, I think those are episodes 7 and 8. So from that point on, we're really focused in and following Cameron's story and the mystery woman and what's really going on behind the scenes. And there is a little bit of a cliffhanger, at the end of episode 13.
And I suppose, Jack, in terms of deception, obviously it's been one of your main body of works that we're seeing here in Ireland and the UK at the moment. Have you anything else in the pipeline, anything that you're working on that will hit our screens here maybe later on in the year, late 2021 or into early 2022, in terms of TV shows, movies, or?
Working on, my most recent thing, I had a small role in Tenet, which I think has come out everywhere at this point. But in terms of what's coming out in the UK and Ireland, I'm not really sure. Currently, I've been working on some pitching and selling new TV shows. So those will probably be a little way out. They take a year or two to get going. So hopefully in the next few years, there'll be something else.
And Jack, finally, before I let you go, you might enlighten all our audience. Episode 1 is over and done with, but obviously you can very much catch up with in terms of episode 2. So what we might enlighten all our audience here in Ireland why they should tune in on channel Alibi. Coming up next week for episode 2, and obviously you can watch back on playback episode 1 if they missed it. But episode 2 of Deception. And Cameron Black, what's in store for him?
He's got all kinds of fun chaos. I can't remember the exact plot points of episode 2 off the top of my head, but
in terms of deception, in terms of deception, in terms of the whole series, what's in store for them?
Oh well, that would be too big a secret to give away. I couldn't possibly say, but he gets himself into an awful lot of trouble. He has. The story with Jonathan will continue to develop. We'll learn an awful lot more about what happened to the two of them, why this is all going on, and how he ends up, consulting the FBI. And that relationship itself will develop in a lot of very interesting ways. Because the thing about Cameron is he really can't help getting himself into trouble. So you get to have a lot of fun watching him do that over and over again.
On that note, Jack Cutmore Scott, a pleasure talking to you today to promote your new TV series debuting here in Ireland and the UK, Deception, out in Channel Alibi. First episode was out in July the 23rd. Do go back, catch that on replay. We look forward to episode 2 coming our way. Jack, take pleasure, and we wish hopefully future success for you and more projects around the corner. But for the moment, take care, and God bless.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Jim. Cheers.
Cheers. Take care, Jack.
Bye.